The unforgiving sun beat down on my neck, a constant reminder of the folly of venturing out in the middle of the day. June 21st, 1889, and the desolate stretch between Capitan Mountains and Lincoln, New Mexico, shimmered with heat haze. John wasn't my real name, of course, not anymore. The law, with a vengeance colder than a desert night, was hot on my heels for a stagecoach robbery gone wrong. Sweat trickled down my temples, soaking the worn bandana I used to keep the dust out. My canteen, a constant companion in this arid landscape, was bone dry. My parched throat felt like sandpaper. The only solace was the rhythmic clop of my horse's hooves against the dusty trail. Just when I thought the sun would finally cook me from the inside out, I spotted a lone cottonwood tree in the distance, a beacon of hope in this parched wasteland. Relief flooded me. Even a sliver of shade was a miracle in this oppressive heat. As I neared the tree, a flicker of movement at its base caught my eye. Squinting, I saw a figure huddled beneath its meager shade. It was a man, his face obscured by a wide-brimmed hat. He seemed motionless, a scarecrow lost in the desolate landscape. Hesitantly, I dismounted, the creak of the leather a stark contrast to the oppressive silence. "Howdy," I croaked, my voice hoarse. The figure remained motionless for a beat too long, then slowly lifted his head. His face was gaunt, etched with deep lines that spoke of a life lived hard. There was a wild glint in his bloodshot eyes, a vacancy that sent shivers down my spine. "Water," he rasped, his voice barely a whisper. "You got any?" I reached for my canteen, then realized its emptiness. Guilt gnawed at me. "Sorry, partner," I mumbled, ashamed. "Ran dry a while back." He looked at me with a desperation that mirrored my own thirst. Then a flicker of something else emerged in his eyes, a knowing, a chilling certainty. "There's water," he croaked, his voice gaining strength. "Not far from here, a place called Philadelphia." I frowned. Philadelphia? There was no Philadelphia on any map I'd ever seen. "Philadelphia, huh?" I repeated, skepticism lacing my voice. "Follow the arroyo," he rasped, pointing a gnarled finger towards a rocky ravine twisting off into the distance. "Follow the water, and you'll find Philadelphia." Before I could question him further, his head slumped back against the rough bark of the tree. His ragged breaths grew shallow, then ceased altogether. He was dead. A shiver ran down my spine, an icy counterpoint to the desert heat. Philadelphia. The name echoed in my mind, a strange sense of foreboding clinging to it. Yet the promise of water was too strong to ignore. Leading my horse, I ventured towards the arroyo, the sun sinking lower in the sky, painting the dusty landscape in hues of orange and red. The air grew cooler, a welcome change from the oppressive heat. The ravine narrowed, the walls rising higher, casting lengthening shadows across the path. The silence was broken only by the trickling of water. Hope flickered. Maybe the old coot was right. Maybe there was water, after all. As the sun dipped below the horizon, plunging the ravine into darkness, I stumbled upon a sight that made my blood run cold. A cluster of abandoned wagons lay scattered across the sandy floor, their canvas covers ripped and tattered. A sickening stench hung heavy in the air, the smell of decay. Then I saw them. Bodies. Dozens of them, strewn haphazardly around the ravine. Men, women, children. Their faces twisted in expressions of unimaginable horror. They were flies, buzzing around a ghastly feast. My stomach lurched, and I stumbled back, gasping for breath. This wasn't water this man had sent me towards. This was a place of death. A guttural growl pierced the silence, making me whip my head around. A hulking figure emerged from the shadows, its silhouette grotesque and terrifying. Claws scraped against stone, and I saw a flash of moonlight glinting off bone-white fangs. Fear, primal and all-consuming, gripped me. I didn't wait to see what the creature was. I turned and ran, my lungs screaming for air, my legs pumping like pistons. Didn't matter which way I turned, the darkness seemed to swallow me whole. The ravine walls echoed with the pounding of my boots and the monstrous creature's guttural growls gaining on me. My heart hammered a frantic rhythm against my ribs, threatening to burst. Somehow I stumbled out of the ravine, the moon casting an eerie pale light on the desolate landscape. My breath came in ragged gasps, my vision blurring at the edges. Desperate for some form of shelter, I spotted a cluster of rocks in the distance and scrambled towards them. Behind me, the growls grew louder, closer. I clambered behind the largest rock, adrenaline making me surprisingly nimble. Pulling myself up, I huddled there, barely daring to breathe. Each rustle of wind, each snap of a twig, sent shivers down my spine. The night stretched on, an eternity of waiting and listening. The growls eventually faded, leaving behind an unnerving silence. Exhaustion finally overwhelmed my fear, and I drifted into a fitful sleep. Dawn broke, painting the sky with streaks of pink and orange. Stiff and aching, I gingerly peeked over the rock. The ravine seemed eerily quiet. Hesitantly, I emerged from my makeshift shelter. The horror of the previous night hadn't diminished. The stench of death hung heavy in the air, an unwelcome reminder of the carnage I'd witnessed. With a heavy heart, I picked myself up and started walking, the thought of Lincoln driving me forward. The journey that followed was a blur. Days melted into one another, the sun a relentless tormentor. I rationed the last drops from my canteen, desperately hoping to find water before succumbing to the merciless desert. Just when I thought I could go no further, I spotted it in the distance, a solitary figure on a lone horse. Relief washed over me so intense I almost collapsed. As I approached, the figure resolved itself into Deputy Sheriff Romero, a man known for his stern demeanor and unwavering sense of justice. "John," he said, his voice flat, "we've been looking for you." I stumbled towards him, words failing me. There were handcuffs dangling from his belt, a grim reminder of my situation. There's something in the ravine," I finally managed, my voice hoarse. "Something terrible." Romero's eyes narrowed. "Tell me what you saw, John." And so I did. I poured out the entire story: the dead man under the cottonwood, the promise of Philadelphia, the horrifying scene in the ravine, and the monstrous creature that chased me. He listened patiently, his face betraying no emotion. Then, when I finished, he simply said, "There's no place called Philadelphia on any map, John." Disbelief slapped me. "But the old man," he said. Romero sighed, a deep rumble in his chest. "He was most likely a prospector, John. They sometimes go mad out here, driven to desperation by the heat and isolation." His words hung heavy in the air. Was he suggesting I was delusional? That the horrors I witnessed were figments of my dehydrated mind? "But what about the creature?" I pressed, desperation coloring my voice. Romero shifted uncomfortably. "We'll send a team to investigate the ravine, John. But..." He hesitated, then lowered his voice. "There have been reports of strange happenings in the Capitan Mountains, Indian legends mostly. But sometimes there's more to legends than we care to believe." He didn't elaborate, and I didn't push. They took me back to Lincoln, where I faced my punishment for the stagecoach robbery. Years passed, filled with the monotony of prison life, but the memory of the carnage in the ravine continued to haunt me, a chilling whisper in the back of my mind. Then, one day, a rumor filtered through the prison walls. A search party sent to investigate the ravine had mysteriously vanished. There was no trace, no remains, just a chilling silence. The whispers grew louder, fueled by fear and superstition. They spoke of a place cursed by darkness, a place where something unholy resided. Maybe, I thought with a shudder, there was a Philadelphia after all. Maybe it wasn't on any map because it wasn't a place meant to be found. Maybe it was a place where nightmares became reality, a place where the Carnage of Capitan continued, unseen and unsated. Years later, a free man but forever marked by the experience, I found myself on the outskirts of Lincoln once more. The weight of the past hung heavy on me, a constant reminder of the darkness I'd glimpsed in the ravine. Then, a young reporter named Sarah approached me, her eyes filled with a curious glint. "Mr. Doe," she said, using the alias I'd adopted. "Rumors circulate about your past. Something about a ravine near the Capitan Mountains." I hesitated. The memory a raw wound I rarely touched. But something in Sarah's eyes, a mix of determination and a strange, almost morbid fascination, compelled me to speak. I recounted my story, the dead bodies, the creature, and the chilling legend of Philadelphia. As I finished, Sarah leaned forward, her gaze intense. "Legends can hold fragments of truth, Mr. Doe," she said. "There's been a surge in missing persons reports near the Capitan Mountains. I believe there's more to this story, and I intend to find out." Her words sparked a flicker of fear in my chest, but also a strange sense of responsibility. Maybe it was time someone faced the darkness in the ravine, for the sake of those who might disappear next. Sarah's eyes met mine, a silent invitation. With a deep breath, I nodded. "Then let's go find Philadelphia," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. We rode out the next morning, two unlikely companions bound by a shared purpose. As we ventured deeper into the Capitan Mountains, a sense of dread settled over me. The air grew colder, the landscape more desolate. The road leading to the ravine was overgrown, barely a memory of a trail. The silence was unnerving, broken only by the creak of saddles and the unsettling chirping of unseen insects. Reaching the ravine, we found it eerily unchanged. A sickly stench hung in the air, a testament to the horrors hidden within. Sarah, her face grim, drew her revolver. Together, we ventured into the darkness, the shadows seeming to writhe with an unseen presence. What we unearthed in the heart of the ravine remains a secret we both carry to this grave. All I can say is that the legends were true, and Philadelphia was everything and more than I ever imagined. The Carnage of Capitan continued, a place where darkness fed on the innocent, a place where the veil between worlds seemed worryingly thin. We escaped, but not unscathed. The horrors witnessed forever branded our souls. The ravine stands silent now, a tomb for secrets best left buried, but sometimes, in the stillness of the night, I swear I can hear the echoes of screams, a chilling reminder of the price paid for venturing into Philadelphia.